Hello and welcome. Today I'm in the Tier 2 German destroyer, the V-25. And I'd like to give a quick word about the German destroyers in general, because I have been absent for a few days because I was ill, and I wanted to post videos about the German destroyers, but I couldn't. It was quite odd, but anyways, I'll go through them to give my opinion about them in general. So at Tier 2 to Tier 4 you have these German destroyers that have frontal torpedoes, and they're really fun. I like them a lot, particularly the V-25, because she has 5.2 kilometer concealment, and that's incredible. Although I believe that might be with concealment expert, I'm not quite certain here. Regardless, she's fun. And although I would like to note that the V-25 I played at, and that you will see in this video, is slightly different from the one that was actually released. The frontal torpedoes on the V-25 that gets released are have the same reload as the side torpedoes. That's not the case on this one. On top of that, the smokescreen should be slightly longer on this one compared to what was actually released. But other than that, they should be more or less the same. They are still both fun. You know, I've played them after release too, and it wasn't that different. I would say that a much bigger difference was the fact that everybody was a destroyer when I played them after release. And I think that's what you're going to see as well, since, you know, everybody wants to play them. So the Tier 2 to Tier 4 are fairly similar in that regard. They all have frontal torpedoes and they are fun as a result. The Tier 5, which is the T-22, is just terrible. Like awful, bad, garbage, trash. Pick a synonym for the word bad and, well, that's what you get with the Tier 5 German destroyer. It's just awful. Why? Because she doesn't have anything special for it, and she's really bad at almost everything. Her guns are pretty anemic. She has 7.0 kilometer concealment range, while she has 7.5 kilometer torpedo range. Those torpedoes are also not very fast, not nearly as fast as something like the Minakaza was, so the Fujins and similar are going to out-torpedo them. The guns aren't very good, the concealment is bad, like I mentioned. They also have a top speed of 34.5 knots, so they are incredibly slow. Essentially as fast as some cruisers even. So it's really bad. And on top of that, you are Tier 5, which means you can get often into Tier 7 matches. So you're going to have to fight cruisers that are as fast or even faster than you. While you have barely any room to stealth torpedo, you don't get to really concealed fire. Your guns aren't very powerful either. So you end up in a situation that's just poor for you. Oh, and the Tier 5 one isn't the one that gets hydroacoustic search either. So I don't really see anything that's going for that ship. It's terrible, just terrible. So I'm actually thinking of skipping that ship with free experience once I actually get it. So let's move on. The Tier 6, the Ernstgeide. I'm not quite certain how to pronounce this, so if you know, please let me know. But the Ernstgeide is excellent. She is, well, maybe not excellent, but she's fun. Like, a ship I really like playing. Because she is Tier 6, she's the one that gets the hydroacoustic search, so that's a good thing. She also gets 150mm caliber guns, which means that she can easily citadel those Tier 5 and some Tier 6 cruisers that she meets. If she meets like a Kirov, the Kirov is going to get absolutely murdered if the Kirov shows broadside, since the gun caliber of the Ernstgeide is so good. And she also gets 8 kilometer torpedoes, which is the so-called usable torpedo range. So the Tier 6 one is really nice. She might not be very powerful if you look at the raw numbers because of things like damage per minute, but you know, she can hold her own. The Tier 7 one, Leberecht Maas, is... I don't quite know how to say it. She's good, decent, but I don't think she's as good as something like the Błyskawica or the Leningrad, so you might not have as good of a time with her. the tier 8 one, the Z-23, is slightly disappointing. I was expecting a ship that could maybe not dethrone the Benson, but be at least as good as the Loyang. But I don't think that's actually the case. Her gimmick is the fact that she gets 150mm caliber guns. You think, oh, well, but it's a choice, you can still go for the 128s, but honestly you really can't. If you look at the gun layout, then it's actually different between the 128mm guns and the 150s. So you really want to end up with the 150mm caliber guns, but if you do that, you don't get to take advantage of things like advanced firing training or basic firing training. And the 150mm caliber guns only have 10.8km range, which is really disappointing. On top of that, because you are at tier 8 and you can meet ships from tier 6 to tier 10, and you'll probably often meet tier 8 cruises, your 150mm caliber guns aren't nearly as effective as they were at tier 6 on the Skydeck, since cruises are far more armored. So what you end up with is something that's really disappointing in my opinion. It's not bad, but it's not very good either. And I was really hoping for something that could, dethrone the Benson, or at least, offer some competition for it. Oh well, it is what it is. And the tier 9 and the tier 10 ones are really good. I don't think they're as good as the US destroyers, but they will have their place, I think. Like, there are definite advantages to having and not having those, because simply of the fact that they have hydro while still being pretty good. They don't suffer from the things the Z-23 has, although you have to remember that the concealed fire thing has been changed on the Z-23. As a result, on the German destroyers in general, as a result, you might not have as much success with her as you would with the other ones. Anyways, I said I wanted to talk a little bit about them, but I actually talked 10 minutes about them. Oh well, whatever. Half the match is already gone, but it was an okay match so far. And as you just saw on the Nassau, I made a lot of use from those frontal torpedoes, although I think this fight would have been a lot more difficult after the release ships, because you don't have access to as fast reloading frontal torpedoes as I did here. But, I would have probably played slightly differently if that were the case. So at this point, I killed all the ships in this cap zone, but there's a Bogatyr coming in, and that's pretty much the ship that I least would like to fight, so I'm gonna leave him with torpedoes while I go straight for our cap zone, because we need to go back to defend. I asked some of my teammates to do that, but it seems they're not really interested in trying to defend. So I might have to go there myself, which I guess I'm gonna try doing. They have, 2 cruisers and 1 destroyer in the cap zone. We have 1 battleship, but I don't know, I mean, it's a tier 3 battleship, so it'll have a lot of trouble fighting against these kinds of enemies. If it were a higher tier, then a battleship might be able to take at least 1 or 2 of them with him, but in this case, none of that happened. All 3 of those ships are still alive, and unfortunately, none of my allies have actually turned around to go back to defend. So, I'll have to try my luck myself. The good thing is that we know exactly where all of the enemies are, or more or less know where all the enemies are. And hopefully these 3 ships, these 3 allies that are near the enemy cap zone, will take out the Bogatyr and start capping. I will try to delay the enemies capping our cap zone for as long as I can. But it's still 2 cruisers and a destroyer, so I might not have a lot of success with it. But I'll still try. So this ship is fairly fast, and she has really good concealment. That makes this ship really fun to play. And you add these frontal torpedoes on top of that, and it gets even better. And I really enjoy it. I was hoping that the entire German destroyer line was going to have frontal torpedoes, but unfortunately that's not the case. I talked to Evan about it when I was at Wargaming Fest. By the way, the Wargaming Fest video is still coming up, but it was delayed. And he said that they would do it, but they didn't find in archives any higher, you know, any destroyers that would be appropriate for the higher tiers that had frontal torpedoes, so it's probably not going to happen. But if they find them, they will definitely add them, because, you know, apparently they also found it fun. So I found this Wickus, and she was standing still for some reason, and I also found this really low HP Caledon, so I'm gonna try dropping one torpedo salvo, or I mean one gun salvo on it, but unfortunately that wasn't enough to kill it, so I'll try another one, and now it'll be a close range fight with torpedoes against this Wickus. I think I definitely have the advantage, because I have access to frontal torpedoes and side torpedoes, so I can lead this Wickus far more than she can lead me, so it's very good for me. And goodbye, Wickus. Okay, and now I need one hit on the Caledon and this is over. And the other cruiser was also taken care of. Surprisingly though, the Bogatyr is still alive. Oh my god, she's still alive, but it's alright. I will try positioning myself slightly differently, wait for the guns, and I guess I'll head out to the cap. I will have the element of surprise, and I should be able to take the cruiser out. Also, I have to remember that she might have access to torpedoes still. I wasn't really paying attention to them. And goodbye, Caledon. So that's why I'm turning towards where the front of the ship was. But at this point, I think this game is done. I was rather successful in this defense. I imagine the battleship actually shot that Caledon and almost killed it. Unfortunately, she wasn't quite able to finish her off, but this did mean that I could actually win this fight. Although, if we're honest though, I did kill the Wickus before I killed the Caledon. But at this point, you know, there's nothing that's gonna happen here, so I'll just skip to the end. I did end up with 5 kills though, so that's a really good result, but because it was during the testing phase, we don't get any flags or medals or anything like that, so unfortunately I don't get a Kraken Unleashed here. It's alright though. I did 87,000 damage, which is a really good result at tier 2. 7,200 experience. None of the other things are that important. 12 torpedo hits is quite good, but you know, at tier 2, you have a really fast torpedo reload. Almost 1400 base XP, that's almost double the number 2 one, so I feel I did quite well. That Wickus, I guess he didn't do all that much, at least not as much as I was hoping for. Detailed report, well, as you can see, 77,000 of that damage is from torpedoes. And I actually did a lot of damage to these battleships and other, destroyers. So I wasn't really kill securing or anything like that for these 5 kills. And credits and XP, it's tier 2 though, so 135,000 credits profit is good enough, I guess. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I would like to thank the Patreons on Patreon. Thank you very much for your continued support, Paladov, and I hope I see you guys next time.